Hello, this is the Babylonian Hebrew live stream. No neats allowed. This is the neat sock free Babylonian Hebrew live stream. This is the quip stream. Because the last stream was just, I made the mistake of putting the link in the chat because it's that thing, it's like, and this is something that's talked about a lot, it's like, as someone of like middling intelligence, I assume that everyone around me is at least of middling intelligence, if not, more intelligent, more knowledgeable, more cultured, more well-read, better observing of decorum than I am, because, I grew up as a young person, so the least knowledgeable, the least, intelligent, of the least sort of, like observant or whatever, like, person within my context, I was surrounded by people who are more talented than I am, more intelligent than I am, etc. So it's like, I kind of automatically just go around the world, especially because I spend a lot of time in places like New York City and SF and LA and London. I kind of, although those places are full of people who just carry around a lot of gross stuff between their ears, they also generally are they understand things like decorum, and they're at least have some processing capability within their cranium. So I kind of project that onto the people around me. So when I do something like post the link out in the chat, or post the link below the video for when I'm trying to do a call-in show, I'm effectively projecting. I assume that if someone comes in like me, even if, let's say, they hate my guts and what they want to do is talk about how they want to exterminate me or exterminate my people or something like that, it's like at least they're going to do it in a manner that's respectful and observing of decorum. But I forget that basically I'm surrounded by idiots. There are dumb people everywhere, and dumb people, but not just dumb people, but like pathetic dumb people, like actually like pitiful people who just kind of want to like lash out because basically their lives are pitiful and they just kind of want to spread the pity. Like, you have
incel rage.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically incel rage, effectively. I mean, you have people like Bruno, the European egghead, who, and I mean, like, obviously you can tell his problem. Like, he's at least twice as old as I am. He's fat. He probably doesn't have a wife or kids. In fact, I'm pretty sure he doesn't. And like, he spends all his time at 3 a.m. on the internet ranting at a Jew who just wants to talk basically mostly to Jews and other sort of repatriationists or self-determination people about like Jewish stuff and about like God and like repatriation and like societal organization and like tradition and like this is just completely unrelated to anything that your autistic mind might be interested in, Mr. Bruno the European fat ass. So it's like, I mean, it's just like these dumb fucking people find my stream, and it's like my stream just started getting inundated by these morons. So it's like, and because they obviously had gotten the link somewhere, there's no way to make it so people can stop joining the hangout. So my stream would just effectively have just become flooded by moron after moron after moron, and we wouldn't really have been able. I mean, it was a funny moment, but it's like
Basically,
it's like we're not going to have an interesting conversation. So I want to have like a slightly smarter conversation now. So we're not allowing any neets on this stream, but neets will be welcome in future streams. So if there are any neets who would like to join in the future, stay tuned. There will be more call-in shows. Hello, John.
You must be this big brain to join, basically.
Yeah, you must be this big brained to join this stream. Effectively, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. Hold on one sec. Yeah.
We only allow the chosen few on in this stream.
Yeah, we only allow the chosen few on this stream. Exactly. No, none of the filthy, unwashed goy.
This stream is a light unto other streams.
This stream will be a light unto other streams. Exactly.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm going to respond to a comment by a viewer of my last stream, Mitch, and he said, "The blue lizard. I've heard you contrast your ethno-nationalist beliefs, and I wouldn't really consider myself an ethno-nationalist per se. I don't like that term because it implies a lot of stuff. I prefer the term like I'd say more like a repatriationist tribalist who supports self-determination, autonomy, monarchy, tradition. But he says, I've heard you contrast your ethno-nationalist beliefs with hedonism a lot. It seems like you see hedonism and personal pleasure and whim-seeking as the only real alternatives."
Well,
I guess that I would say is this. Hedonism makes sense. Hedonism / antinatalism makes sense if you accept materialism or materialist atheism, effectively, as far as I see it. And hold on. And I was just going to respond to, I'm going to also say just one last thing, which is I think that the state that most humans, at least most young men, will revert to, sans socialization, religion, or other societal structuring, is one of basically kind of like hedonism, pursuit of pleasure, things like that, etc. I think so. Yeah, I guess that I think that if you are, let's say, a materialist, atheist person, and you don't really have any strong kind of like, sort of like, I don't know, like kind of Nietzschean or whatever kind of like beliefs, like desire to like create something even after acknowledging that that is the fact. Like if you, which is most people, functionally speaking, I don't understand why not advocate something along the lines of, you know, antinatalism, or just put everyone in a pleasure pod where they're hooked up for the rest of eternity, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, I mean, I guess that's just sort of my take. But anyway, John, you were going to say?
I was just going to say, like, what is the alternative otherwise? Like, how can you have cosmopolitan, like, world, like Francis Fukuyama humanism without, like, some aspect of hedonism? Like, I don't see actually what the goal is besides that. Because isn't it about, like, love, unity, and, like, basically, like, pleasuring ourselves? If that's the goal.
Well, I mean, let's see. I mean, if you were a materialist atheist, what would your next step be?
My next step would be like, I would just be like Francis Fukuyama, man. Well, actually, if I was, it depends if I was a race realist or not. If I was a race realist, I might be like some ethno-nationalist materialist and be like JF. But if I didn't know about race realism, I would probably have like some cosmopolitan globalist worldview. But like, it would always be based on like utility. And so like you said, the problem always comes back to like hedonism, because if you simply look at the world as just this world, then you're mostly concerned with having a good life, which means lots of pleasure and happiness.
Exactly, that's the way that I see it. And of course, there always are going to be a minority of people who don't think in such a manner, like Cater Endless. But that isn't a majority of people, you must understand.
And I don't even, like, I don't want to quip Cater Endless, but I don't even think that makes sense to me. Like, personally, like, why would you, if you are a materialist, like, why wouldn't you make the focus of this, like, this world about happiness? Like, that doesn't make sense to me at all, unless you just subjectively value something for no other reason.
Yeah, I largely agree. I mean, there are a few alternate views that I could think of here. You know, for someone who's particularly, you know, care harm sensitive, I guess I would say antinatalism makes sense, or perhaps even some sort of like mass euthanasia. And then for someone who is, you know, particularly fond of, let's say, like hedonism or pleasure, I'd say, you know, you hook everyone up to a sort of like pleasure pod kind of VR type
Right.
system. You know, have everyone perpetually on some sort of you know, drug drip or something like that,
Yeah.
or, you know, etc. And I mean, it's kind of already what we have going today. I was just talking about earlier today, and over the course of the past week, I've just been talking about how in places like New York, like everyone's always on drugs. Everyone's always on drugs, a drug of some sort. You know, they go out at night to drink, and on the day, you know, they're doing Adderall or Coke or modafinil. It's like, or even caffeine in copious amounts. It's like everyone's always on drugs, and that's the thing. We're edging closer and closer towards that pleasure pod world, because it's like,
Well, what else would
logical.
there to be to worry about?
What
You know
else
what I mean?
would precisely? If
Like,
all that matters,
yeah. I was just going to say, like, that's why it always comes back to utility with materialism. Like, it doesn't have to, because technically, like, things are nihilistic in a materialist worldview. But at the end of the day, in a materialist worldview, you still have, like, your sense of, like, subjective feelings. So you base your worldview based around those feelings. And, like, you might even play the long game on it, where, like, JF does, where you might play it intelligently, like, oh, if we have this, like, traditional society, we'll get more, like, happiness and pleasure and whatever. But even then, like, the end goal is for you to feel better. It's not actually like something outside yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I largely agree. There's a comment in the chat that I want to reply to that says, if you keep your familial ancestors a part of your life, e.g., ancestor worship or reverence, this cosmopolitan brain and that nonsense of just living for hedonism becomes fucking ridiculous / absurd. Yes, 100% agree. And this is why I keep a photo of my ancestors all over my hall, and all on my shelf there's a photo, and over there's a photo of me and my mother. And it's like, yeah, I have photos of my ancestors all around the house to remind me that they're looking down at me every single moment. So it's like, it's very and I always have that image in my head whenever I'm about to do something degenerate. I tell myself that, my ancestors are looking down on me. My headphones just died, so I'm going to reconnect from my other device. Give me 1 second, okay?
Sure thing. I'll pick it up while you're doing that. So basically, I agree with that, and I would say, I think that if you're like, even if you're in an atheist materialist worldview, like that still isn't enough, though. And like we were talking about God and theology and stuff, so I'll just go on with this, and I'll say, like, if you're looking at your ancestors as a source of meaning under like a materialistic paradigm, what you're really looking at is you're worshiping aspects of yourself. So like I said, it always comes back to the self. But I do agree, like, atheist materialists who have a sense of where they come from in terms of ancestry are going to fare off a lot better than like atheist materialists who are, like communists or people who want to create perpetual revolution. So there's that. But yeah, let me check the chat, guys. I'm not on my YouTube browser right now. Okay, Mitch Groupman says, well, I can't read it while I'm on the Hangout app, but he basically said, like, I see hedonism as the end goal of humanity. But it's like, why? Because at the end of the day, like, that's meaningless. Because, like, it's almost like when you gorge yourself after a meal and you just feel empty inside. Like, you have pleasure, but, like, you're actually not being fulfilled.
100% agree, Mitch Groupman. I 100% agree. You're in favor of hedonism and see it as the end goal of humanity. I 100% agree insofar as that is what I used to think back when I was an atheist, and I pursued that relentlessly. I pursued hedonism relentlessly. I mean, okay, I'm curious about the Epicurean philosophy. I'd like to know more about that, but that's not directly related, but I just want to put a bookmark in here for myself for when I rewatch this video. I'm interested in that. But hold on 1 sec.
Yeah, I was just gonna say though, I think like I don't know. I think just endlessly seeking after pleasure is almost a form of enslavement. It's like you're making pleasure your new god in a way. It's a false idol.
Oh yeah, here's what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, why is it that I felt so bad after all I did was pursue pleasure in the form of, like, what did I do? I mean, maybe I did it wrong, but I did a lot of casual sex. There was like probably about a year-long or year-and-a-half long period of my life where I was, doing, stimulants every day. I started on Vyvanse and Adderall, and then I transferred to things like ecstasy and MDMA. I was doing those every day, but it wasn't happy. It was taking, like, it's sort of the natural effect karma of things. Like, I was listening to Manly P. Hall talk about karma. It's like, these things naturally kind of in a way take their toll. I used to smoke cigarettes, that took its toll on me monetarily. In other ways, like even if those things could be eliminated, I don't think I'd feel happier. I think I'd be worse off, even if the health risk would be eliminated, because it's something about decoupling the pleasure from the sort of whole reward and struggle situation that I don't think is really, it doesn't, there's a niggling voice in the back of your head, and you can look at it from a purely materialist sense, saying, like, this isn't really healthy, this isn't how it ought to be. And that's how I felt when I was constantly having casual sex. I've had more casual sex than I can literally remember. Like, I can't put a specific number to it, and I've ruined, because of that, I've contributed to ruining every single one of those women's lives, and ruining my life every single little bit that much more. It's like I guess the way that I see it is it's just all for naught. It's all just like this all this it's just I didn't feel happy at the end of it at all. And in fact, I almost felt as if there was a voice telling me, and like my ancestors were kind of just there saying like, "Don't do this."
I think
I don't know how to explain. It's just
like
I just felt so empty. I felt so sad, and I felt so alone, even though I was surrounded by people in New York City.
Mitch would say, I think, like, you were probably like you didn't have a long-term enough view of your hedonism. Like, if maybe he would say, like, if you had a longer-term view of your hedonism, you wouldn't make these shorter.
Yeah, as opposed to the sort of feckless failing the marshmallow test.
Yeah,
kind of like impulsive young man hedonism, as opposed to the hedonism of, let's say, giving to charities and donating your time at soup kitchens, and having a healthy family, so that you have all the endorphins popping off and you feel fulfilled in your life. Okay, that's another.
But even then, it's still meaningless, because like at the end of the day, you're like, what am I actually contributing to? Like, if everything gets wiped out, because it could all be wiped out tomorrow. Like, that's the truth of it. Is like a comet could hit us, like the Earth could blow up, and we'd all be dead, and like none of it would matter. And it's like any good that you put into the world was, first of all, if you're a nihilist or a materialist, like, it's subjective. So like there's not even an objective truth to what you were doing. It just made you feel good. And then secondly, it's not even like lasting, because it could be gone. Like, it's like humanity is so fragile,
Absolutely. In the chat, yeah, exactly. It's all in a way. It's incredibly tenuous. That's why you can't put all this investment in the material world, is because it's all it is all kind of absurdist in this kind of like Camusian sense. It's all just like, it's all this big absurd farce, and it's like it's all for naught also as well, in a way. Think about it, like universe heat death. Like why put any faith on the fickle material world? And hold on one second. I just want to respond to a comment in chat. It says, as we age, we learn the distinction between pleasure and contentment. And I agree, none-yabidness, I largely agree. Yeah, I had a hard time, even within my life, I had an easier time deciphering the two as I grew. I wish I had that insight back then, and even then I sometimes have a hard time mixing the two up, and even when I consciously know one is the other, I am still drawn towards the pleasure in a lot of instances, just simply due to being a very weak-willed individual. But I think that's an excellent point. And Mitch says, I don't think the fact that life is fragile plus transient is going to stop people from doing important things. I think it absolutely is. I think it already has to some degree. What important things are being done right now? What constitutes an important thing in a materialist context? If everything is going to just end from universe heat death, what's important is entirely subjective and entirely anthropocentric.
People used to believe that when they were doing great things, that they were actually discovering God's universe or discovering the beauty of God's creation, whereas now they just do it because of money or whatever. So obviously it's going to have a huge effect on what people do, and it's going to have a huge effect on what type of person actually strives to try and create the newer paradigm. So I mean, it definitely will have an effect.
Yeah, I agree. To the Emperor